Hello everyone, welcome to the channel Data Science with Harshit. So you would ask, what's different today? Well, I will tell you that today I am TensorFlow Developer Certified. Now, on March 12 this year, the TensorFlow team announced this TensorFlow Developer Certificate Exam. Now, cut to June 13th, I passed the exam. Now, I'm not a preacher of these sort of certifications, but since I was following the TensorFlow team so closely in their developments, so when they announced about this exam, it just got my attention and I had to take this up. Not that particular day, but yeah, I knew that I would take this up at some point of time. So in this 2-month long period, the gap between March 12 and late May, so I was honoring my personal commitments. There was a lot of client work that I had to do, so I knew that I would have to create some space on my calendar and dedicate that time in order to prepare for this exam. So I did that, created a learning plan, and it has been an amazing learning streak for this past 2 or 3 weeks that I have spent preparing for this exam. Now I am here to share all the nitty-gritty details of what the exam is, what this program is, and how I prepared for it, and how I passed, and how you can pass it too. So what is this certificate program about? Now, the certificate program is an official validation confirming your proficiency over using TensorFlow with respect to solving deep learning problems or machine learning problems in this AI-driven job market. So, if you are someone who has the skills to develop those deep neural networks and solve problems with it, which is the utmost important thing, you can take this exam to differentiate yourself with this certificate. Now you'd ask that this is just another certification program. I mean, yeah, so what's new and what's unique with this certificate? So I'll tell you why should you take this exam. So firstly, I would say that this is not the certification where you have to simply watch, like 2-3 minutes of video lectures and then submit a multiple choice question exam, all theoretical. Here you have to code and solve a class of problems. Now, secondly, how many times have you thought of starting something new, learning something new, a new library, and then dropped the plan midway? Same goes with me. So for me, this TensorFlow Developer Certificate exam worked as the destination to my learning journey. So I set out this 1 month, so this was like the destination, the goal. Thirdly, you should keep monitoring the technology space in your field. Any profession that you're in, you should keep monitoring what's happening, what are the advances that are coming in. And I looked over this Stack Overflow statistic where it tells you that 90% of the questions that were posted in 2020 or late 2019 were around TensorFlow. So you know that there's a huge community, huge number of users that are using TensorFlow, which makes it a lot more reason to take up this exam. And lastly, I feel that Google provides value to its developer and users, from my personal experience at least. And I believe that they have structured this exam in such a way that you can, it's worth giving it a try, validating your skills and then adding some weight to your portfolio. So if you're sold by now, I would tell you what you're supposed to do in the exam. So here's the exam walkthrough. Now, the exam is an online performance-based test where you are provided with the questions that you have to solve by building TensorFlow models within a dedicated PyCharm environment. Now, you can take this exam from any place you want, and you should just have a reliable internet connection there. You can start the exam at any point of time, whatever time that suits you. I started mine at midnight. And the criteria is that the exam would test your ability to solve problems like image classification, natural language processing, and time series forecasting. and using TensorFlow 2.x. So about the time duration, so you can take up to 5 hours to complete this exam, and if you exceed the time limit, the exam will be auto submitted and you will be graded only for the questions for which you have submitted and tested your model. Now this exam will cost you $100 US, and you are allowed to use any resource that you would normally use during your machine learning development work. Is it looking scary to you? So let me tell you how I started preparing for the exam. Now the first thing that I did was during the last week of May, I was simply studying the exam, the structure of the exam. So the TensorFlow team provides you this certificate handbook, which gives you every little detail of the exam and what all skill set you should master before taking the exam. So after studying this handbook and the exam structure, I designed this curriculum for myself and to cover all of those skill sets that are mentioned in the checklist in the handbook. And I set myself up with a schedule for 20 days so that my personal engagements don't push me off the track, because this would require some dedicated effort day in, day out. You have to be really consistent. And that's all. I started preparing for the exam using this curriculum. I created this list of resources that I used and that would be required in order to prepare for the exam. So this Notion list basically gives you all those resources, and the link to those resources, it's published. You can find the link in the description. So the TensorFlow team again did a great job of suggesting the required resources for the exam based on your familiarity with machine learning. So on top of that, I was following a few books and a few YouTube playlists that I would recommend you, and which would basically help you make those basics crystal clear in your brain, and some of those resources would help you go beyond the exam requirements. So let me give you an overview and try to review all these resources that they have recommended. If you don't know about it, I have written this blog reviewing all of these resources that I recommend. So I have reviewed these on 2 scales. One is the usefulness to pass the exam. So this is the usefulness to pass the exam and the learning value. So let me walk you through each of these resources, and I will try to review each of these resources based on 2 scales. One is the usefulness or the relevance to the exam, and the other one is the learning value that you would get out of that course or that book. So the first one is the TensorFlow in Practice Specialization on Coursera. So usefulness is 5 on 5. This is absolutely needed in order to score well in your exam and to cover every skill that is mentioned in the skills checklist. And so this is the recommended course on the certification homepage as well. And if you carefully study the skills checklist and the outline of the entire specialization series, you would be able to figure out the direct mapping of each skill. Now it looks like either the exam was created keeping in mind the course or vice versa. So the entire specialization contains 4 courses. One is the introduction to machine learning and deep learning. Second one is your convolutional neural networks using TensorFlow. Third one is natural language processing using TensorFlow, and the fourth one is time series, sequence modeling and prediction. So this comes in at a cost of $59 a month, which Coursera asks, and you do have a free trial of 7 days, and I have a free alternative which we'll talk about in just a bit, and the time it takes you. So it took me 14 days to cover everything, but I have some prior experience with TensorFlow, and I think it should take you not more than 4 to 6 weeks. depending on how much time that you dedicate to this your study plan. I was pretty intense when I got close to the exam date, covering, studying for at least like 5 to 6 hours, coding all the exercises and all the exercises again and again. Resource is the alternative, or the free alternative to the TensorFlow Specialization. So this is the YouTube playlist by Lawrence Maroney, the same author, and he's putting out all the stuff, all the material that he teaches on Coursera, free of cost on YouTube. You can find the link in the description below. He has put out the Machine Learning Foundation, and there's a dedicated NLP 0 to Hero series which he has put on the TensorFlow YouTube channel. So again, the link is in the description. It's free of cost, and it should take you like one week per playlist to cover everything and code everything out. So the third resource is the book Hands-on Machine Learning with Scikit-Learn, Keras and TensorFlow, the second edition. So I would rate it 3 on 5 on the usefulness scale, based on its relevance to the exam. Not all the chapters are relevant. So, but this book is a Bible for machine learning aspirants, and this is like a must read for all those who want to do really well in the field and get a really good understanding of how all the machine learning algorithms and how neural networks work and what's the mathematics behind each of those. And then it also explains you the hands-on code to solve problems, and gives you some really detailed exercises which really clears out all the foundational concepts. So I've been reading this book even before I got to know about this exam. So this is like a must read. I'm still reading it, and the learning value is 5 on 5. You would get, this is by far the best book that you would get on machine learning, for me at least. So the cost is basically, if you want to buy a paperback, the price would vary depending on where you are. On Amazon, I have an O'Reilly, I'm an O'Reilly instructor, so I have all these resources available in my author portal. But I would suggest that you should buy, invest some of your amount to get an O'Reilly subscription, because you would get all of those resources available in your account. And yeah, you can definitely go ahead with that. So, apart from all the other resources, I have compiled a list of free YouTube playlists that you should refer to. I keep revisiting them time to time to get a refresher on the basics of deep learning. So the first one is the MIT 6S191. Now this is, the usefulness is 3 on 5, not quite relevant, but you should watch the first 3 videos in this playlist, which are on introduction to deep learning. Then it would cover convolutional neural networks and RNNs. These are the kind of models that you would also be implementing during the exam, so you should get a really clear understanding of what the foundation is. So they have given a really good explanation of how things are working around, and also tells you how do you get started coding all of those models in TensorFlow. Then the learning value is 4 on 5. You're really good, basic understanding. You'll get a really good basic understanding of all those concepts. So yeah, it should take you like 3 hours. Each video is 1 hour long. So yeah, whenever you want to watch. So I used to watch these kind of videos whenever I was in a mood of just watching and learning and not actually doing more hands-on. So this was more of during that particular time of my day. Then the second YouTube playlist is Convolutional Neural Networks by Andrew Ng. It's same as similar to the MIT course, but with Andrew Ng's method of explaining deep learning. So I watched this last year. Again, very helpful. Usefulness is 3 on 5. Not quite relevant to the exam, but you should definitely watch it for the basics and to get a good grip over those basics. And then helpfulness is again 4.5, as Andrew has his method of explaining, which is really good. And then again, it should take you like 8 to 10 hours depending on how you want to spread the time. And then we have next video playlist again by Andrew Ng, which is on sequence models. Usefulness is 3 on 5, learning value 4.5 gives you a really good understanding of how the sequence models work, really important as well. So again, this would also take you around 8 to 10 hours, so that should probably be it. Now the fifth and the last resource is the PyCharm tutorial series given by JetBrains Learning Center, the learning resource, the tab that they have on their page. So you should definitely check that out in case you are a beginner and you have never used an IDE. So you should definitely go through this playlist. They've given a really good getting started series, and that will really help you out setting up your environment. Then we also have a setup instruction guidelines in the form of a PDF provided by the TensorFlow team. So you should definitely check that out, and also make sure that your system is up and running in the same way that the exam environment would need. So make sure that everything is working as expected and as required by the TensorFlow team. All of those instructions are mentioned in the documentation that they have provided in the PDF. So that is a pretty long list of all the resources. Now you'd ask, how did I manage to cover everything? So I'd say that I have gotten into a habit where I try to plan my next day the night before. So what I used to do was, I used to create a time slot. I used to block like 3 to 4 hours on my calendar, that these are in this particular time slot I would simply be learning, going through my course. I would cover each of those 4 courses and the specialization, read a little bit of hands-on, do hands-on book, and do a lot of hands-on exercise that Lawrence tells you. So I used to first go through the code that Lawrence provides, and then I used to work on the exercise. I used to write the whole thing down myself, and that would be like 2 or 3 times that I did that for each course. And then I did 1 or 2 more times during the revision as well, so that everything is like crystal clear, and if you give me a problem, I'd be solving it surely. My process of actually studying, so what I used to do in that pink time slot that you just saw in my calendar, so what I used to do was simply watch the videos. Then I used to try it out myself, all those exercises, all the code snippets that he used to teach. And then what I would do is, at the end of that lecture or that week in that particular course, so I would do that assignment, the ungraded assignment that they provide, and I would do that all myself. I used to write the code myself, and then I used to read the hands-on book at the end of my my slot, or maybe at night if I get time. So and in the middle of the day, maybe whenever I used to get like 15-20 minutes, so I used to go back to that YouTube MIT course and get a refresher on how things are working around, and how those neural networks are actually working, and why they are designed, what each of those parameters really mean. So so basically watch, code, practice, watch again, and then repeat. That's what I used to do. So after all of this, you should be prepared for the exam if you have been consistent, if you have stuck with your plan, and you have to make sure that you have covered all the skills, and I mean all the skills that are mentioned in the handbook. So if you think you're ready, go to the certification page, click the begin exam button. You would be redirected to the service provider, the exam provider, which is True Ability. You can buy your exam from there. It will cost you $100. Now, you can take the exam at any point of time, even after like buying. You don't have to, like, you can just buy it and it would still be there. unless you go ahead and redeem the code and then start the exam itself. So that's not a problem. Just make sure that you have a good reliable internet connection before you start the exam. Make sure that PyCharm is working smoothly. Make sure that you have run 2 or 3 TensorFlow scripts from the TensorFlow tutorial page. That's what I did in order to check that everything is working as expected. And I was in a comfortable place at midnight where I didn't have any distractions or any sort of noise coming in. So I was like really focused at that point of time. Started my exam. You hit the start exam button and you're on. So during the exam, your exam will be in an environment that will be created by the plugin, and you will be directed to the question that you would have to solve. And I won't be able to share like much detail here, that would be unethical, but I could tell you that it was all very smooth. I was fairly confident that I would complete the exam with success. And I completed the exam within 3 hours. So a few tips and tricks for the exam that I can provide you are: first one, make sure that you practice a few exercises on PyCharm 1 or 2 days before your exam, so that you are in a pretty comfortable stage using your PyCharm IDE. Second one is for the models that take time. What I did was I used to train the heavier models on Google Colab using the GPU runtime. So you should definitely do that, and keep working on the other questions while your previous models are running. So don't just keep watching at the looking at the terminal with your model training. So what I had at one point during my exam was I was training 3 models, working on the 4th one, and those 3 models were like one I was training on my own machine, and then 2 were being trained on Google Collaboratory. So that was when I was trying to tune the hyperparameters and trying to get the best out of each of those questions, and then I was working on the 4th one. So the last tip that I would give you is, if you have enough time, please just go for the best results that you could get out of each of those models. I got the best for all the questions that were there. So what happens when you have submitted the exam? So the post-exam rituals are basically I got an email right after I submitted my exam, which told me that congratulations, you have passed the exam, and it contained a form which asked me to register for the TensorFlow Certification Network, so that anyone in my area can find out who are the people they should reach out to, who are the certificate holders in their particular area. And from the True Ability dashboard, you would get this screenshot. You would get this where there would not be any detailed analysis of how you did, but they would just simply tell you that you have failed or you have passed. So that's what they tell you. So what happens if you fail the exam? Now you will have to wait for 14 days before you can give it another try, and if you fail again, you'll have to wait for 2 months, and for all the subsequent failures the time duration will basically keep increasing. So a few other questions that I would like to address here is, first one is it really important to take this exam? Can't you just simply work on a project and then develop a particular skill? And I would say that is probably the better approach rather than taking this exam. This is a nice to have, but not a be all or end all solution to learning deep learning or TensorFlow for that matter. So if you're working on a project, that's really good. You can definitely, there are plenty of other resources, other things that you can learn from, and this is just something that you can add to demonstrate your proficiency over TensorFlow. Sorry. A few of you would ask me that, yeah, this is a little expensive, you would not be able to afford. So the TensorFlow team is extending a few stipends for those who might not be able to afford. So you can apply on this link. You'll have to fill up a form and a few things, I think. Yeah, so do explore that page and read what they ask you to do. So the other question is, so if people want to start from scratch, what are resources they should look out for? So learn by start doing things. Don't start going into the depths of statistics, p-value and all those things. And I would suggest that you should simply start by coding. So focus on Python programming first, coding the basics, then gradually dive into the basics. And I would mention the links of a few books that you can refer to if you are a beginner. So you've got the certificate, what's next? Now I would say, just like any other skill, start building stuff, start looking into those open source repositories where you can contribute using your skills in deep learning, TensorFlow. Then start applying for jobs if you are looking for a job, and flash your badge, add some weight to your portfolio, and I hope that you land a job or whatever that you want to do. Now I am going to start a series on TensorFlow, and I would try to educate a lot of you about TensorFlow, basics of neural networks, deep learning, and we would be covering each one by one. And I would try to create some really real world projects where you can work and showcase your expertise in all those fields. So I would probably be going live maybe like next week. I would post the update on my social media profile, so make sure that you follow me on LinkedIn, Twitter and Medium, where I write. You should definitely check out my blog version of this from where this video is inspired. It's a pretty detailed blog where I have captured all the details what I've spoken here, so you should definitely check that out. And I wish you all the very best if you are taking up this exam soon. And I wish to see you in the network, the TensorFlow Certificate Network. Give this video a thumbs up if you found this video useful, subscribe to the channel, and if you have any questions, feel free to comment down below. So until my next video, keep learning data science with Harshit.